morning, Nigeria. Good morning, all 40. Thank you for joining us today. You're tuned into Sunrise on ANEKE TV, where every sunrise begins with delightfulness. I'm bringing you today's daily dose of brightness. I am Deborah Wakuba, coming to you live from our studio here in Bambrat, Enugu.
And good morning to you, our global audience. I'm Uche Ossai. Wherever you are, at home, in your office, or in traffic, thank you for letting us into your space this beautiful morning. We're here to refresh, inform, and motivate.
Yes, and today is Thursday, 29 January 2026. So we've got a power-packed morning for you today where we've got our latest news, what's trending, our updates, and of course that special sunrise vibe to help us begin our day.
So, grab that cup of coffee or tea, relax, enjoy the sunrise because we're here for you.
Yes, and today's sunrise will be kicking things off with our quote of the day. With was that thoughtful? Was that inspiring? Words that offer insight to whatever we do to keep us well focused, stay motivated, and stay well driven.
Then, it's straight into the day's top headlines. All the key news updates that you need to remain informed will be shared, hot and tasty.
Yes, and right after that, we'll be giving you our weather report covering cities across the southeast and beyond. So you would know what to expect before stepping out, or you've stepped out already. It is to keep you throughout the rest of the day.
And later we'll bring to you the man of many parts, the sports oracle, commissioner for enjoyment, and the mental mechanic. And of course, we'll let you be informed with our business news updates.
Yes. Now moving over to our inspiration segment today, which is our quote for today. Our quote for today is coming from Chinua Achebe. Like we all know, who is a renowned writer, not only a writer, but very known for his diverse knowledge and also his cultural awareness. And now in his quote, he says, "A man who pays respect to the great paves the way for his own greatness." I'm going to take that quote again, coming from Chinua Achebe, that says, "A man who pays respect to the great paves the way for his own greatness." Now, in this quote, Chinua Achebe is carrying a deep lesson about humility, about wisdom, and about growth. And he's also saying that when a person recognizes honor, if a person recognizes honor and learns from those who are great, whether in character, wisdom, achievement, or experience, they are not diminishing themselves. Rather, they are preparing their own path of greatness. So when you come in contact with someone who has achieved something, someone who, or when you honor someone who is above you, you're not only diminishing yourself, you're not stooping yourself low, but rather you are learning an experience, you're learning something great from that person. That is what Chino Achebe is also telling us today. Mr. Uche, I'd like to know your own thoughts on this quote from Chino Achebe.
Right. The literary icon, whenever he speaks, brings out the depth of Igbo proverbs and meaning, and exports it to the world. And this morning, when he says that a man who pays respect to the great paves the way for his own greatness, you know, entirely captures that Igbo worldview about one being respectful to elders, and not just being respectful to elders this morning. If you are respectful as a human being, then you open up the channel for you to learn, and the ones you respect will definitely be open to let you in on
Yeah.
new knowledge, and that way you would excel in life. And that's what the literary icon is telling us this morning. And you did talk about humility. Yes, for you to excel in anything, you have to come to the table being humble, and it offers you opportunity. A lot of men have been offered seats at the table because they were humble enough to be able to learn from others. And what does this tell you? That you do not need to be jealous of successful people. No, you don't need to envy them. What you need to do is sit around them, celebrate their success, and by way doing, you will be able to pave way for yourself. And when you've done away with, jealousy, and you've imbibed the culture of humility, it leads way to what the Igbos say, "Na nwata kwọcha osoro ọgaranya rie nri," meaning that when a child washes his hands clean, he will feast and dine with kings. And what does that tell you? You relate it with the Igbo worldview. You see this Igbo apprenticeship system. How does this relate to that? You see, when you get into this system, you see that a boy is brought from the community or the village, goes to the city and begins to serve his master. He serves he has to be respectful, he has to be diligent, he has to be humble. So it imbibes every of the aspect in this very quote that Chinua Achebe is communicating. And what happens? The master replicates himself in that boy. So quite often you see the boys who have passed through the Igbo apprenticeship system being successful, and that has led the Harvard, to come Harvard Business School to come study this Igbo apprenticeship system, and has preached that the other everywhere, even in higher institution, it should be adopted. And what does that teach us? That yes, this is a pathway to greatness. That's such that people who have always passed through that system turn up being better at what they do, and they have been successful over time. And when one thing is an analysis where you see even the people who have been well educated, well exposed, but have not passed through the Igbo apprenticeship system, when you take them to the marketplace or into business, a number of times you see an unlettered individual dusting them in business because they've taken time, out of this pathway of respect, humility, and diligence. They've learned the tradition and culture in that very field such that they can best anybody in that field. You see someone who has never been seen the four walls of a university, into importation, knowing how to calculate when to make the moves, the business move, that it's time to either increase prices, it's time to leave this other hardware and move to other hardware and import a different thing. They become well schooled in it because they've been through a process. And that's what Chinua Achebe is telling us this morning, that when you pay respect to the great, you are paving your own way to greatness. So that system should be imbibed. And which, when you relate it to the good book, what does the good book say? It says, show me a man who is diligent in his work, and he will sit before kings and not mere men. And what is he saying here? For you to be diligent, you have to be one who respects greatness. And from that, being diligent in what you do means that you have the ambition to aspire to be great. And that leads to another aspect. You see, successful people are always the most humble people around because the process they went through, they've imbibed that culture of humility because it's a process. And what happens? They become. That's why when you listen to people who are successful, they will tell you that the money you don't have up here cannot be in your pocket. It starts from the way you think. Is a whole lot of process, and that process is what Chinua Achebe is communicating this morning. A man who pays respect to to the great, paves the way for his own greatness, and there's no doubt about it. You become what you admire. You become the process upon which you arrive. And you see a lot of people, they say that it is the process that matter. It's not the end that justifies the means. The process really matter. And if you undergo a process, that's why we take time, to culture our children, to send them in through kindergarten. They get through the primary school, from the secondary school to the university. Life is a process, and it is that process that trusts that greatness upon you. So you cannot gain the best from people when you don't pay them respect. Chinua Achebe is letting us this morning to know that respect is a very big ingredient for one to attain greatness in life. And when you are respectful to those who are above you, even in workplace, even in business community, people will give you certain information that will open way for you. That's why when they talk about climbing the ladder, you see that every successful person will cite one person at one point in time that helped them climb the ladder because they've been respectful, they've been humble enough to learn from these other people, and the doors will continue opening. And the other way around, you look at what happens to arrogant persons. When people tell that this is an arrogant person, what do you see? People tend to move away from them. Opportunities tend to be limited. So this morning, I encourage all of us that we should pay keen attention to the words of the literary icon, the hero Chinua Achebe, whenever he's speaking, because he brings the depth, hidden knowledge, especially very rich in cultural Igbo culture. He exposes it to the world, and like the Igbo say, "Anasna ilu," the manage Ryoku, that the proverbs and idioms are with the oil with which you eat with, and that's what Achebe does very well. He simplifies, the most difficult things and puts it in a way that it captures the very essence of what is being communicated. So this morning, let's listen to Chinua Achebe by knowing that a man who pays respect to the great paves the way for his own greatness.
All right, thank you very much for that. And also, he's also saying that respect here is acknowledging the efforts and sacrifices of those who came before us, and also learning from their successes and their mistake, and also showing humility rather than arrogance. And Ochabe is also warning us against the mindset that says, I don't need anybody's help, I already know it all, and also that true greatness grows from respect, learning, and continuity, not our own ego. So while we're paying respect to those before us, while we're paying respect in order for us to be great, let us also keep in mind that every new sunrise is an opportunity. It's a platform where we grow or where we learn something new or simply be more present in whatever we do. Now let us know what this quote means to you. You can drop your thoughts across our social media feeds: Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, or at ANEKE TV. Or call our phone number 070-3043-7110. And up next is our weather report for today.
Yes, we'll take a look at the weather reports across major cities in the southeast today.
Mostly dry day with plenty of sunshine peeking through some clouds. So expect temperatures climbing into the low to mid 30 degrees Celsius with a warm breeze keeping things lively. Rain not in today's forecast. So go out, soak up the sun, and stay hydrated.
Good morning, the coast city. Over in Enugu, it's shaping up to be another warm, dry day. You will feel that sunny warmth with a classic dry season weather with highs around the low 30 degrees Celsius, perfect for outdoor shows. But don't forget your sunglasses.
And in Abakaliki is also feeling the heat today, with temperatures likely hitting the low 30 degrees Celsius. It's one of those days where you step outside and bam, sunshine greets you like an old friend. Keep cool and take breaks in the shade.
And good morning, Imo State. Over to Owerri. You've got heat turned up. Expect hot temperatures possibly into the mid 30 degrees Celsius. A sweet, friendly weather with lots of sunshine. A few clouds might dance across the sky, but no big rainstorms interrupting your plans. Keep that water close.
And lastly, in Omahia, it's hot but wonderfully dry today with sunny to partly clouded skies. You will enjoy the warmth, which is perfect for early risers and market goers. Just a light breeze to hug you morning.
So, wherever you are in the southeast today, stay safe, stay cool, dress light, but do remember that either rain or shine, we've got you covered. And this is your weather report here on Sunrise on ANEKE TV. We'll go on a short break and we'll return with news update.
Culture is identity, tradition is continuity, and heritage is memory. Together, they tell the story of a people. When we lose our culture, we lose ourselves. Celebrate your roots, language, attire, food, and festivals. They are treasures worth preserving. Security is not just police on patrol. It is safety in homes, schools, markets, and mines. Without it, progress is impossible. Be alert, report danger, support community watch. True security is collective responsibility.
Sunrise on Nikki TV. Now we'll be taking a look at our major headlines making the news today from the Nation, Punch, Vanguard, and the Daily Trust paper.
And joining us this morning is the man of many parts, the mental mechanic, the commissioner of enjoyment, Mr. Goodhope. It's a pleasure to have you here on Sunrise this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yeah, I hope you rested well.
Yes.
All right.
Now over to our papers for today, starting from the Nation paper, where the headline says APC kicks off Congress's convention plans Monday. And in the Punch newspaper, the major headline there says outrage over police crackdown, Lagos anti-demolition protesters. And on the Vanguard paper, the headline says battle for Kano, Kwankwaso blows hot, Yusuf digs in. And on the Daily Trust paper, electoral bill delay fuels uncertainty ahead 2027. Now I'll be starting today's paper from the Punch headline, and the Punch headline that reads outrage over police crackdown on Lagos anti-demolition protesters. Public anger is rising in Lagos following a police crackdown on residents protesting demolitions in their communities. Protesters say they were peacefully demanding answers over planned demolitions when security forces moved in. Rights groups and civil society organizations are now calling for accountability while authorities insist law and order must be maintained.
All right. All right. When we see the headline, police, this is a usual headline, and it's always been the case, followed by the outrage over police crackdown on Lagos anti-demolition protests. And we'll start by looking at why are these individuals protesting, right? And why is it that usually we'll see police high-handedness when it comes to protest wherever and around Nigeria, for example, and even outside Nigeria? First of all, let's look at what are they protesting for. These are Lagos citizens who has converged from various looks and crannies of Lagos State. Speaking about people who are from Owede Onirun, look at people from Oworishoki and Makoko, coming to protest. And what are they protesting? That government has displaced them, without adequate compensation or relocation. We know that, yes, one thing that we won't take away from the planners or policymakers of Lagos State or the government of Lagos State over time is that they have the vision to transform Lagos from the city it is right now to a mega city. And when you look at turning a state or a city to a mega city, then a lot is involved. You have to look at reimagining the architectural design of that very city. And at the heart of this is that over time we know that historically, though Lagos has evolved to the city it is today, but there are a lot of slums in Lagos. When you go to around Makoko, Owede, Oroshoki, and all looks and crannies of Lagos, they are littered with what people will tag as slums, or ghettos or shanties, depending on the nature of the very place. And this one thing over time we've seen that the Lagos state government, from again, they tend to want to, demolish this whole area to give it a new lift, to fit into that mega city status that they want Lagos to occupy. While I give it to the planners or the runners of Lagos over time, they've tried, in their ability to elevate Lagos to that status. When you look at the Eco Atlantic City that is being planned, these are, good development efforts and strides. But with having said that, another thing that is quite, germane that you can bring into this conversation is that when we're planning a mega city, part of the plan should be what and how do we relocate the people that will be displaced, because we know that a lot of persons will be displaced in terms of when you are talking about a new road network, a lot of infrastructures. You may have to displace the old infrastructures that is no longer serving the new city. And part of it is that when you look at the architectural design of Lagos and the environmental beauty of Lagos, you know that Lagos, is mainly an island that you have it has occasioned traffic in and around Lagos, such that man hours are lost in traffic. And these are things you have to reimagine in creating a mega city for Lagos, and that would in itself lead to demolition. Having said that, now people's houses, people's homes, people's offices will be affected. But one thing is that we demand that government that is for the people who have a human look, have a humane approach to issues. Why they make these plans to elevate the city, there should equally be plans for the displaced. Where are you going to relocate them? Some of these individuals, are in their ancestral homeland. They do not have any other place beyond where they've settled. And a lot of settlers who are in these very places that are being demolished will be displaced, and they may not have no other place to relocate. Making the protesters, position germane, such that if government is demolishing where they are living, they are demanding that their government, they have brought into power, should be able to relocate them, give them a new place to stay. And for me, that's a legitimate thing to ask of your government. That government, yes, in itself, what is, it leads me to that very question. Why do we have government? What is the job of government beyond, protection of life, of properties of citizens? Another thing is that you provide welfare for the good of the people that you govern. And in this very instance, that you're demolishing these people for, development, or for one reason or the other, perhaps these are shanties that are now encroachment into government-owned area or pathways for development. But government need to have a human face and relocate this very individual to a new place. Having said that, government has failed to do very that. And for them, the only way to get the attention of government is by protest. And protest in itself is a legitimate tool of negotiation in a democracy. But one thing I have to point out that yes, why the constitution has given us the inalienable right to freedom of assembly, to be able to communicate and air our view to the head, we have to do it in an orderly manner. Having said that, this individual has taken to their legitimate right to protest, to convey, their demands to government, and which is acceptable anywhere in a democracy. Is only in an authoritarian government where you see that people are clamped down on. In Nigeria, we did witness during the military eras, where there were clampdowns on protesters, those who do not align with the military principles or the government of the day. A lot of individuals, remember the case of the Nadeko, who were fighting the government of the then junta, the late General Sani Abacha. A lot of them were sent into exiles, and these things happen in military governments all over the world, where opinions are suppressed. People are not allowed to protest. But in democracy, protest is a legitimate tool for people to let their government know their position on issues, especially when they feel that they are not being listened to or they are not being consulted in certain things. And having said that, then another position is, what position should government assume when there is a protest? And that protest happens to be hinged on the duties of the police, which is equally to safeguard, through government, the life and property of citizens. And one thing that one expects when there is a protest, yes, we expect the availability of police, because the law has made it such a way that when you want to embark on protest, you have to notify the police for protection. And again, for them to be able to protest the protesters and see that hoodlums they do not hijack such protests. So seeing policemen around protest sites or areas is equally in order, leading us to another issue here. Then what does police do? Bringing to point what really usually happens in our climate, where we see the police always want to align or be seen with the government of the day, to be protecting the interests of the government rather than the protection or the provision as enshrined in their, the police act, for them to protect the citizens, and see that such protests, are aligned in a peaceful manner. But what happens, though police in this very instance has come out to say that the protesters were unruly and they were blocking the highway, which would cause additional chaos or lead to loss of lives. And if that's the case, I tell you that the police, yes, are in order. We've seen over time, when you look at the hunger protest that did happen in Nigeria sometime, we saw that when that protest started, the police assumed the protective responsibility to protect protesters until things, degenerated the way it did. Having said that, I implore every protester going forward, having said that that's a legitimate tool, should be abide a peaceful, means in leading their protest for whatever they intend to protest against. And in this instance, this individual having marched from, they converged in Ikeja, under the bridge, moving to Alausa, where the seat of government in Lagos is sited, where the legislatures are, to convey their, their disaffection to their elected legislators, to give their meaning. But they were blocked at the entrance to the Alausa, and leading to more altercation, where even certain individuals, some legislators came to address them. They refused until they allowed access into the premises. Now, leading to another question, why wouldn't these protesters allow the legislators address them? Again, it speaks to how we handle issues in Nigeria. And that leads me to talking about government, the way government in third world nations, Africa in particular, though I will not exaggerate some Western countries we've seen even in the United States of America, where the government takes certain, position against protesters, seeing them as always as being that of the voice of the opponent or the opponent sponsoring such protests. But I think that the right thing to do is that whenever there is a legitimate concern of the citizens, that the government should be able to send delegation to interact, dialogue with this individual, and then find a purposeful way forward. And in this instance, whenever you do not do that, you see that it may lead to chaos. And why would police usually, when you have a peaceful protest, come to the ground, bearing live ammunition, which in many instances have been used? And if you go back to history, you will see that a number of times when police are involved, we come to protest with this high-handedness, it usually escalates beyond the peaceful protest that we know it to be, to to a chaos. And that leading me to, why would the police in this instance begin to use tear gas cannon against the people, and in some instances we'll see them use water cannon as well, and live ammunition against protesters. These are things that should be jettisoned. In fact, the police should be the ones leading the negotiation effort with every protesters. And if I go back in history, one remembers what happened during the NSAS protest in Nigeria. That protest in itself started peacefully. It was a peaceful convergence of the Nigerian youth in around 2020, where they wanted their voice to be heard and lay their legitimate concern against police brutality. What happened until the police now got involved and their usual manner, started to come against the protesters with tear gas, water cannon, and in some instances, like in Oshobo, in Oyo State, where a certain Isiaka was shot, allegedly shot by police, things degenerated and assumed the violent nature that the NSAS protest is now known and ascribed to in history. And it takes me down memory lane to begin to see places where police has intervened beyond the protection of protesters to assume the position of government, and instill this high-handedness. It usually degenerates to anarchy and chaos. Look at what happened in the case of during the Floyd, yes, during the Floyd protest in the U.S., where the whole procession at the Princeton police station was so peaceful until the police fired tear gas cannons at the protesters, and things assumed, went must die for the worse, and it became a violent protest, leading to several, injuries and all that amongst the people. So in this very instance, one may plead with the authorities that we should equally and often be able to dialogue with whichever group that protests. This will not be the last we'll see of protesters. People will continue to protest in every clime. There is always a situation where you see people who are disgruntled. People will not always align with your views. Remember that when the youth equally in the NSAS issue at Loki Toget, they were all peaceful until the police intervened trying to disperse them, and then things degenerated. And I did cite again the case of George Floyd, you know protest in 2020, where at the third precinct the people now, though peaceful until the police, started with their tear gas cannon and pepper spray, leading turning things to violence. Even when you travel to through history in Philadelphia in 2020, they are equally, even in Salt Lake, there are places where protests started, peacefully and later turned violent due to police inability to handle such situation. And in that case, we will have to admonish the police and even governments all over the world, and especially in Nigeria, not to see protests as a dissent or the face or the voice of opposition. There's nothing wrong. You can dialogue with this individual. I equally as an undergraduate, I remember those later days. We've been in a lot of protests, and what happens? we had a vice chancellor who would call the student union government for negotiation. And a number of times, when you see the leaders of, there are always leaders in every protest. Try get the leaders, then start negotiation. Whenever you get the leaders of a protest and you start negotiation, you see that you have a way of calming frayed nerves. And I remember in those days, whenever the school authorities start that negotiation, is you begin to have a divided house, and you see that that protest will no longer achieve that force, that unique force that the gathering of students entails, and you begin to see these dissenting voices, and before you know it, that becomes the end of protest. So negotiation should be seen, and engagement should be seen as a veritable tool, to interact with protesters, and not the police high-handedness that we are now used to whenever there's protest. And if my memory serves me right, I remember in 2003, following the then election, where the late president Muhammadu Buhari and his then running mate, the late icon Chuba Kadibo, former Senate president, where they were in a rally, to protest for that election. Then the police, used deployed tear gas canisters, and we know, as is alleged, the statement died from the tear gas canisters that were shot at them at that rally, and then that he's said to be asthmatic. Then the complication led to his untimely demise. So this is why we need to renegotiate our approach and engagement to protesters. But one thing that is certain is that people will protest, and we should ask, do they have legitimate concern to protest? And in the case of these protesters in Lagos, I am not their advocate, but I can tell you one thing, that they are protesting on legitimate ground. Their concern is quite germane, that the government has not considered their plight. The houses are being demolished, you've not relocated them, so you have to, one way or the other, engage them. And engage them, they need to do that fast, so that this does not degenerate again. We know the position of Lagos. When you look at the protest that has been happening in this nation over time, even when this present president of Nigeria did then, when we protested against the removal of fuel subsidy, it did start in Lagos, where everybody congregated at the Ganifa Umi Park at Ojota, and things from there escalated, moved to other cities, Kano, Port Harcourt, throughout the federation. So it tells you the position Lagos occupies in Nigeria, which is why every government in place in Lagos should be, very aware and sensitive to the plight of the people, because it may start as an issue that is just particular to Lagos, but other states may begin to interpret and read meaning that they too are undergoing the same, the same situation, and they bear the same plight, and you see things begin to escalate beyond control, which is why I always advocate. And in this very instance, the government of Lagos may have a very genuine reason why they are demolishing, but in demolishing people's homes, you need to relocate them or give them time to relocate. And in situation where such individuals may not be able to, relocate themselves, then governments, that's why we have government. But there's no doubt that, yes, to transform Lagos from the slums, from the city it is, to a mega city is welcomed, as that will position Nigeria, not just economically, but a viable ground. We saw the amount Nigeria generates from 30 December, and that gives credence to why Lagos wants more development and turn the city to a mega city as fast as possible. But we shouldn't do that at the detriment of the inhabitants of the state. They should be catered for. There should be adequate plans for them, and government should engage them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now we're moving over to our next paper, coming from the Vanguard newspaper, that the headline reads, Battle for Kano, Kwankwaso blows hot Yusuf Dixon. Now the political temperature in Kano State is climbing fast. Former Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso has taken a strong stance on recent developments in the state, while current Governor Abba Yusuf remains firm, insisting his administration will not be distracted. Analysts say the bout also reflects deeper political realignment that could define Kano politics ahead of the next general elections. Mr. Uche.
All right. Kano State has been in news for quite some time. Yes, and all that is happening is not unexpected. It's just like when someone takes your baby, you cry foul. You remember that case in the scripture where two women were dragging their baby and they had to go to the king for solution. And in this instance, what we are seeing is seeking solution to what happened. You see that the Kwankwasia movement, let me use the word, that they feel grieved because their baby has been taken away from them. And who do they go to? The people are the king now. And that leading me to the question is not unexpected. We've seen the trend all over the place. It's been a trend in this dispensation where everybody is trying to align with the government in the center. We've seen defections from every region of this nation. And even more surprising than the Kano, you know, defection of Governor Yusuf to APC is that these defections equally happened in southeast Nigeria. And in the case of Enugu State, for example, where APC have struggled over the years to make incursion into, and we now saw a sitting governor elected under the platform of the PDP. I wanted to say the defunct PDP, but they will come for my head. But yes, because I don't know the position of where PDP is today, if it's still in existence or they are buried with the whole lot of crisis, that's bedeviled the party. But be that as it may, we've seen many governors elected under their platform, though, really, has moved to the APC, and especially in Enugu State, where we've seen that Governor Peter Mba unexpectedly, moved to APC. Not many people saw that coming. Moving from Enugu State, when you go to River State, you've seen that the governor too has ported. Delta State, the same thing. Go to Bayelsa. So all over the region, every governor, every state governors are porting from their party to the real ruling party, the APC. So it's not quite surprising. And everybody, if you're a political watcher in Nigeria, you'll be quite aware and know that, yes, that the APC government led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if he is that political sagacious as he is said to be, a good as he is said to be the political henchman, if sorry to use that word, that he is, being so um, being so deft politically, that he would want Kano State for himself. And there is no saying that they will do everything to get the governor over, because by getting the governor over, it's so to a certain extent that you will be able to make inroad in winning the political structures of that state. And in the case of Governor Yusuf, is not unexpected that Ganduje, who leads the Gandujia movement in Kano, a former governor of a former governor of Kano State and a former leader of the party, would himself want the governor of his state to join his political party. And I told people that when Governor Ganduje did at that instant, leave the position as the leader of the party for on head grounds, I told them that there's a lot brewing, because if you know Kano politics for what it is and how the various political warriors of Kano State has fought over the political position of Kano over time, then you would know that Ganduje will not just go home and sit down and watch. No, no, there's none of them who doesn't want to control the politics of Kano State. And that's why I said that when Ganduje was going home, we are going to see a political fight, and he has come to manifest in the way and manner that Governor Yusuf has defected to APC. And now, Kwankwaso has come out to say that that was a big shock. With the interview he granted to BBC that is monitored, you will see that he said it's a very big shock to him, and that many, and myself inclusive, has alluded to the fact that this could be a political plan between him and the governor, for the governor to move to the ruling APC, which Kwankwaso has come out publicly to deny that it was shocking to him, and he doesn't understand or know why the governor would move to APC, that he has taken the mandate of the people, the victory they fought for over time, and now taking it to the camp of the enemy, referring the Gandujia movement as the camp of the enemy. And having said that, then one, you would begin to speak to what will happen in Kano State when you are moving forward to 2027 election. I would say that what has happened in Kano has a way of, causing a political realignment of 2027. This very movement in Kano State will affect a lot of the politics that we are going to see moving forward in 2026 to 2027. And what am I trying to say? Remember the votes that come from Kano. Yeah. Kano is one of the KK states that will give you a bulk vote. Wherever Kano is aligned, usually, irrespective of what happened the Jonathan era, but we've seen through history that wherever the KK states are aligned, that such political party end up, bringing up the president of the nation, and it's no doubt that that's why Kano is so much coveted. But now that Governor Yusuf has moved to the APC, citing party intrigues and disaffection and a lot of disgruntledness in the party as to reason why he's moving, we are not going to say that the Kwankwasia movement will let them be without a fight. I know that the Kwankwasia movement is now, they are now growing up, getting ready for a fight. And I tell you, the politics of Kano State will be very, very interesting moving forward, because at one end, we've seen the Gandujia movement welcoming the Governor Yusuf Abba into their fold. If you did watch the defection, you will see where Gandujia was raising the hand of Governor Yusuf, which Kwankwaso, Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso, described that hand raising as a mark of failure on the part of governor, that signifies his failure come 2027. But I tell you one thing that is so spectacular about Kano is that the politics of Kano is mirrored by and for the people. And that is why a lot of political observers have difficulties understanding the political mathematics as to why the Governor Yusuf Abad now decided to realign with the APC. And why do I say that? You see that the political movement of Kano is aligned to the Talakawas. That's what when you talk about the Talakawas, you talk about the downtrodden of the society. And this has been the way they fashion their politics, the most successful political bigwigs in Kano, and that is what Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso has done over time, galvanize the Talakawas and have a movement that they don't just see it as a political movement. They hold on to it as a way of life in itself, and you always see them with that red cap. They are so beholden to the movement, such that he is now coming out to say, and this is why a lot of us wonder what led Governor Yusuf to make that move to APC, because we see that the Kwankwasia movement, which is a hub of the Talakawas, will now begin to realign. And one thing they do very well is that they are always anti-status quo, and and Kwankwaso has harnessed this very well over time, leading to the number of votes they were able to garner in the last election, where NNPP, won the majority votes in Kano State as per the presidential election, and even bringing up the governor that now defected to APC, beating the incumbent governor's political party. And you see, that's why we're projecting 2026 to 2027 is going to be a big fight between these various movements. Now we're seeing that the Gandujia movement has welcomed the governor. Having said that, and when you told this line of argument of a party structure that is, inbuilt for the masses, the Talakawas, you remember Malamaminu Kano of the Nepu, the northern elements, you see his politics was somehow pro-people. And you go back through history, is it the Sabo Bakinzuo? Look at his politics in the Second Republic. He was a governor of the state under the PRP in around 1983. Their politics is always mirrored around the Talakawas. Is it former governor Shekaru of Kano State? Shekaru, you see his politics is always like that of Aminu Kano, the people-centered, the Talakawa-centered kind of politics. And that's why you saw a lot of disaffection when they heard that the governor wants to come to the APC. Because I know that a lot of the Talakawas in Kano are aligned with the Kwankwasia movement. But politics is what it is. And just like the former governor, Ganduje, has said that for him, there's still a lot of room for reconciliation, being that he has been a two-time deputy to Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso when he was the governor of the state. He was his deputy during their first term after they lost, and then when they came back, Kwankwaso still chose him and he later on succeeded Kwankwaso as the governor of Kano State. And he, according to him, he has left the room open for more conversation, that he is open to, reconciling with his former political ally, and that since they are of the same faith, that their faith, doesn't allow bitterness, that it is politics, and there's still room for reconciliation where they can all come down under one umbrella in one interest and propagate the interest of Kano politically as under one political fold. But like I did mention, 2027 will be a very, very interesting one to watch, especially given the unraveling of things in Kano State. And quite interesting is that we saw the son of Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso, Mustafa, resign his position from the cabinet of the, yes, to from the position of the, they've given him in the government of the led by Governor Yusuf. So there are a lot of individuals who would equally resign, and I know that the deputy governor too did not resign with, or did not defect with the governor. So there are a lot of intricate uh, um, things that will unravel as we journey along towards 2027. But I tell you, it will be a very political scenario to, interesting political scenario to watch.
Yeah, my question is, what if at the end of the day, at that place of the puzzle, the power puzzle, they now have to come for some, now have to, come back to APC, or now have to join APC, looking at our political system and what has always been happening. You know that there are several of our governors have said, oh, they are not going to join APC. Several of senators, a lot of people have, in the early days of APC said they're not going to join these particular movements. But as time goes on, we now see a lot of defection from political parties to APC, and it is something that we have to just look into. That it could be, because my own is that as the commentary was going on, I was just thinking about it. What if at the end of the day we're going to still have this? We're going to have Kwankwasia movement, and we're going to have these two parties reconcile, and then the APC will now, welcome Kwankwasia too. So at that point, all the whole G3s, all the whole, because there's a possibility of reconciliation in politics.
No, let me tell you this. There is a tried political scenario in Kano State. Before the emergence of Ganduje, what we saw was the dominance of Senator Musa Rabiu Kwankwaso and the former governor Ibrahim Shekaro. But now Ganduje has joined the fray, and I tell you that it's going to be a three-way division that we are going to watch. What I can tell you for sure over time, if you've studied the politics of Kano State, is that whenever Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso defects to a political party, where, for example, let's say Senator Kwankwaso is defecting to APC and Shakaro is in APC, not definitely that you will see Shakaro leaving APC for another political party. And in this instance, I cannot tell you that that will not be the case again, while I do not rule out the possibility of a Kwankwaso moving to APC. But what I can tell you is that there will always be serious contention as to who will dominate the politics of Kano State. What is at stake here is not just the position of Kano, but it's as to who calls the shot to the political destiny of Kano State. And I tell you, Chakoro, Gandujia, Kwankwasia, none of them is ready to give up. And I tell you, a lot of water has crossed under the bridge. There was a time where we were expecting a reconciliation of Kwankwaso and Shekaro to be in one party, and that did not happen. We saw Shekaro move the other way. So it is politics, yes, there is a possibility, but you may not be surprised. A day will come when you see Kwankwaso returning to APC and Ganduje moving the other way. But I tell you, politics is always a game of interest. So you can never say never. It may happen, but these individuals, I tell you, are all contending for who will control the political soul of Kano State. But we have another individual in the fray, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who we've seen, with some kind of magic win that has, somehow hoodwinked every state governor to want to align with the APC or to defect to the APC. Even those of them who are in other political parties will tell you that they are aligned with the government at the center. We've seen Governor of Osun State, for example, refuse to defect to APC. I bet negotiation not working out well, move to another political party, but say that he still supports President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We saw the governor of Anambra State, who is in Abga, speak eloquently to his support of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So we see a lot of governors aligning. So it won't be surprised if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu equally, waves that magic wand to break these whole individuals under one political party. And that's why I did tell you that we are seeing a situation that what has happened in Kano will cause a lot of realignment, going into 2027 election.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now we're moving over to our next paper for today from the Daily Trust paper, and the headline says Electoral Bill delay fuels uncertainty ahead of 2027. Concerns are growing as delays in passing the electoral reform bill continue to cast a shadow over preparations for the 2027 elections. Stakeholders warn that unresolved legal and procedural issues could affect planning, transparency, and confidence in the electoral process. Calls are now mounting on the National Assembly to act swiftly to avoid last-minute chaos. Mr. Goodhope, I'd like to know your thoughts on this.
Well, basically how the whole legislative system has been and how in our system where we need some assents, where we need bills to be assent to be giving a right to go into action by the system where it has been delayed a lot of times. I want to start saying this from the angle of how it has really been so far. That several times there are some delays in action, and this has caused the fuel issue to rise. Because looking at the situation of our economy, coming from the side of petrol and the gas and other things, and how there have been a little series of battles coming from the import and export industry of petrol, coming from the small time tussle here and there. You would see that there has been a need for this to happen over time. There has been a need for this issue to be settled. But still, right now, we are still going back and forth in the administration of this particular thing, which has really caused the fuel issue to, the petrol issue to take a turn, which is not working out. So we're looking at how this is going to be, and I don't know what Mr. Uche.
And looking at the whole scenario when we're talking about this electoral bill, as is being reported, you do remember that around December the House of Representatives sat, on this electoral reform bill, and now it is beholden on the Senate to equally, sit. And there is no doubt when people speak to disaffection, leading to the delay, in passing this electoral bill 2025 or 2026, as the case may be. We've seen, like the other day, that it was brought up, they had to, it was in the other paper of the Senate, but it was stepped down for discussion, being that the chairman of the electoral committee, Senator Simeon Lalong of APC Plateau State, Plateau South APC, was not in the chambers that they stepped it down. But be that as it may, there's worrying concern that this delay may, is taking a longer time. Every Nigerian and every observer in Nigeria was thinking that by now we should be done with the electoral act as to know the guidelines for the next election. And this delay, there's no doubt, is going to impact the next election, and one is hoping that by now they will be done with it. And a lot of individuals have already come out to accuse the Senate, of protecting their particular interests, that the electoral act as it is now favors a lot of the present politicians who rode at the back of the inaccuracies and incorrectness in that bill to get to where they are, and a lot of them may not want to see such laws tampered with, that leading to why we have this delay. But be that as it may, when we look at the impact this delay will have on our electoral system, then you understand that there is every need to be in a hurry to pass the bill, because it has far-reaching implication on our electoral process. And this delay, you look at from every angle, there's need for this amendment to happen, and the Senate should hasten up the way the House of Rep has moved to sit, deliberate, and look into this bill. Let us have a comprehensive amendment passed on time so that INEC can be able to fashion out a timetable for the 2027 election. And I tell you, a lot of people are confused as to when the election would happen. Remember that there is a proposal to bring forward the election to 2020 such that every litigation around elections will happen before the swearing in date, so that an incumbent will not be bedeviled by legal issues as we witnessed in 2023. So be that as it may, the the legislature owes this nation as a responsibility to see to it that these electoral bills are amended on time and such that the INEC, which is saddled with the responsibility of fashioning out the electoral timetable for this nation, can go ahead. And you see the way there's a standstill. INEC at this moment is unable to take action. They are yet to come out with electoral timetable. And what does this leave us to? There is a possibility that if this act is not passed on time, it will go a long way to impact the credibility of next election, because it's this act that will help us see that we'll have a credible, free, fair, and credible election. And without this amendment, I can speak to you in every indices that it will impact the credibility of next election. If we take into account what happened, we saw a situation where a presidential candidate that challenged the outcome of the previous election told us that he is challenging the process. And what is the process? Part of the process is the inaccuracies that we have in the electoral bill that needs to be amended. And when you speak to it, we need to know what the law and where the law stands on the issue of electronic transmission of results. What is the position of the law on beavers? What is the position? These are issues that need clarification on time, and this in itself is equally affecting political parties. The political parties cannot be able to plan if they don't know what the electoral amendment is. I tell you, politicians play around the law a lot. They need to know the direction they will move, and this equally will affect the security agencies that need to plan ahead, train their personnel, draft out their electoral timetable, and map out plans for the election. So in all, the Senate owes us that responsibility to move fast, because it has, like I did mention, it has a far-reaching implication beyond what we're just discussing. And if we do not, do that on time, for the people to be assured that the next process will be credible, I tell you, we may be witnessing a lot of political apathy, come 2026 or 2026 or 2027 election, depending on when we face the election as well.
But it surprises me that right now we have not had that electoral bill into coming out, because if we are going to have our election in 2027, like it has been, like the proposal is, we should actually have had it earlier so that the swearing in should be next year. Looking at the case of Mr. Peter Obi with the current government, looking at how everything played out, there was a lot. Of course, it happened at the time it should happen, but there was a lot of political, a lot of issues that came up that needed to be settled. There was this back and forth going here and there to settle this whole thing. So I'm asking myself, why have we not had this right now? And why is it not happening? Because when you look at the election, the reason why I will tell you the whole electoral bill too should be passed is looking at the budget of the election, and also the facilities needed for the election, the IREV, the beavers, and other things. You know what happened in the election in 2023? How those things at some point fail. By now, we should have been having some test run of these things. I don't know if you really would see that with me. By now, we should be having some test run of these things, knowing people should be, encouraged to come out to. We should even be having something like, I'm just trying to suggest something like mock election, where people can also participate to have to see what it could be at the end of the day. So that's
the summary of everything we're saying. Without the legislature, coming out and passing the electoral bill or electoral act 2026 or 25, as the case may be, INEC will not be able to set a timetable. I will not be able to do a mock run like you are saying. So that's why I tell you that this bill will determine the outcome of our next election. How free, how fair, and how credible the next election will be dependent on this. And when you speak to the litigation process that we witness after our election cycles, it speaks a lot to why we need that amendment to happen. We need to factor that into being, and that speaks to a lot of litigation you see after the election, speaks to the process. And that's why you saw the candidate of the Labour Party say he was challenging the process, because there are a lot of lacuna in our electoral process that needs to be challenged, and these are that have what I call constitutional immunity, because until they are amended, you may not petition them. And having said that, again, when you are done with the amendment, then it has a way for the planners of the next election to know the resources that will be apportioned, and it speaks to the legitimacy of whatever election that you will conduct going forward. Why people are raising allegation and protesting against the senators or the legislature as to not wanting this amendment to happen, because it is time bound, is that a lot of them, as they allege, stand to benefit from the old order. But going forward, we need to bequeath this nation a credible process that will entrust a credible leadership. Because when the process is mad, it has a way to, raise questions as to the legitimacy of an elected government. And you did cite the case we witnessed in 2023. And I tell you, 2023 election wasn't the only one. You've seen the late head of state a number of times going to court to challenge the process, the elections, whenever he comes with his millions of votes, and for either technicality or one thing or the other, he is denied. So he's been there, and these are part of the issues that needs to be looked into the electoral amendments.
All right, thank you very much for that. And now this is where we call it today on our newspaper review. Do not forget that you can grab physical copies from any of your favorite vendor or catch the paper online for more broader information. And up next is our sports update from the man himself, Good Hope.
All right, thank you very much for having me here this morning to give you and bring you what's happening in the world of sports. Yesterday was Champions League, and a lot of matches came. Of course, the predictions would say how the match should be, but the outcome of the result also tells you what happened in the match, and we will not always rest or sit back with predictions. We will always also look at what really will be happening. First of all, is that in the AFCON, the sanctions from the CAF disciplinary committee. It has been said that some of the individuals who played a part in the AFCON final disputes that had to happen between Morocco and Senegal in the match they played, that some of those individuals, they have been sanctioned and they have been fined, just like a Senegal head coach. He was fined, and also talking about that, Akraf Hakimi was also fined. Then on that same line, Senegal's Sarr was, his name Sarr. He was signed. He's a midfielder, and he was signed because of the action that happened here, like you've seen on the screen. Because of the action, of course, there were issues around that, but also the Federation of Morocco Football, they were fined too because of the misconduct around the ball boys and the other things that happened at the end of the day, where they were dragging towel with the goalkeeper. A lot of issues around AFCON, which CAF has come out to settle, to say this is not going to happen, and because of this, it has to be brought to the books, which we have seen, and it's happening already. Now, moving over to Champions League and what happened in the world of Champions League yesterday, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool had their share of the game, including Manchester City, who delivered a wonderful spot. You can see that Arsenal won 3-2 yesterday, and we are talking about Champions League. Barcelona won 4-1 yesterday, while Rafinha, Marcus Rashford, the Lamine Yamal had to score their goals respectively, while Lewandowski had to register a penalty with his own goal with penalty. We're still talking about that Benfica had to win Real Madrid yesterday. And in this Benfica match, their goalkeeper had to make the goal. The goalkeeper scored yesterday. That's just what it is in this game of Benfica, and it was a 9-minute goal. He had to knock the ball into the goal post. And we're talking about Bruges. Bruges scored 3 goals to winning Marseille or in their home. Frankfurt lost 2 goals to Tottenham, and Leverkusen won 3 goals. Liverpool won 6 goals. They won by 6 goals, of course. It was a good match. Mohamed Salah, since November last year, has not scored, but he scored in this game. And Manchester City scored yesterday. Erling Haaland too, and the rest of the guys played a good game. While we're talking about this, then we are going to go down to Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea. These 2 guys were not so. I don't know what really happened, but Paris Saint-Germain tried their best. Then Chelsea, on the other hand, had to win their game yesterday against Napoli. Well, Napoli were tipping Napoli to win, but Chelsea won, and that is what we have been seeing in the world of the Champions League yesterday.
All right, thank you for that sports update, Mr. Good Hope. And moving over to the business update, starting with the Nigerian stock market. The Nigerian stock market, as at yesterday, January 28, 2026, the Nigerian stock market closed on a slightly bearish note, with the all-share index ASI dipping by 0.1% to settle at 165,531.55 points, down from Tuesday's close of 165,713.81 points. The market activity saw a notable decrease in volume compared to the previous session, reflecting a more cautious stance from investors today. Total market capitalization closed at approximately 105.75 trillion naira. And then when we look at the market summary, the market capitalization stood at 105.75 trillion. The total volume of shares rose to 278.65 million units. And then we can tell you that the market sentiment, though slightly bearish, where we saw 38 losers versus 32 gainers. And the top 5 gainers in this list was led by the real estate and financial service sectors, with several stocks hitting the maximum daily limit of 10%. This number one on the top 5 gainers are Union Homes. Union Homes closes trading yesterday at 94 naira 85 kobo, making a plus 9.97% adjustment. We see Deep Capital Management closing their books yesterday at 9 naira 49 kobo, making a plus 9.97 positive adjustment. And they are followed by Tantalizers. Tantalizers yesterday closed trading at 3 naira 88 kobo, making a positive plus 9.92% adjustment. We see Skyway Aviation traded as Skyvan, closing their books yesterday at 128 naira 60 kobo, making a positive 9.91% a positive adjustment. And we see the last on this list of top 5 gainers by Morrison Industries, which closes trading yesterday at 9 naira 99 kobo, equally making a positive 9.90% adjustment. And then looking at the list of the top 5 losers, we see across a mix of aviation, healthcare, and hospitality sector. We see RT Briscoe closing trading yesterday at 6 naira 50 kobo, making a negative 9.97 adjustment. They are followed by May and Baker. May and Baker is a pharmaceutical company, stock which closed trading yesterday at 35 naira 25 kobo, equally on the negative minus 9.96 adjustment. We see Ikeja Hotel closing its books yesterday at 2 naira 25 kobo, making a negative 9.92 adjustments. We are seeing Living Trust Mortgage closing book yesterday at 4 naira 64 kobo, equaling the negative 9.90% adjustment. And then the list on that list is E-Transact, which closed trading yesterday at 17 naira 35 kobo, equally on the negative 9.16 adjustment. And then the performance as a yes, they will see large cap stocks like Gregu Power and Boa Foods saw significant sell-off today, contributing to the overall index decline. And then we are seeing Zenith and Jitco manage marginal gains, providing some support to the banking index despite the broader market dip. And looking at the Naira performance as of yesterday, the Naira continued its positive streak, hitting a significant 2-year high against the US dollar in the official market. This rally is largely attributed to the increased liquidity and the continued impact of the central bank's electronic foreign exchange matching system. And then let's give you the breakdown. At the official market yesterday, the Naira opened at 1,400 Naira 28 kobo as against the dollar, and even got as high as 1,466 kobo at the official market. And then at the black market, it opened at 1,470 and then closed at around 1,485 against the dollar, the parallel market. And as against the pounds, we saw the Naira yesterday, depreciating and closing at 1,929 Naira 99 kobo. And then as against the euro, we equally saw a depreciation in that it closed at 1,675 Naira 53 kobo. This at the official market milestone, we saw that the Naira for the first time hit 1,400 Naira mark since May 2004. It has gained significant ground since December 2024 when it's trading around 1,661. And then we're looking at the foreign reserve buffer, which ensures confidence is being bolstered by Nigerian external reserves, which rose to a near high of 46.06 billion US dollars as of late January. At the parallel markets, while we're talking about the official rates, which strengthened, the black market saw slight pressure due to end of month demand for importers, but it remained relatively stable to the volatility of late 2025. And that is it for the business update this morning. But you are aware and notified that before you make any financial investment, please do consult a financial expert. Look at a financial expert due to the volatility of the market. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. And this is where we call it a day on Sunrise on ANEKE TV. And it's always a pleasure having you here on our show every morning. Do not forget to follow us across our social media platforms, across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, all at ANEKE TV. Or call our phone number 070-304-37110. It's always a pleasure having you here. I am Deborah Wakuba.
And thank you, Mr. Good Hope, the man of many parts. Thank you for that sports update, and thank you for always being here with us on Sunrise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I'm Uche Ossai. Thank you on behalf of all of us here on Sunrise and the crew at ANEKE TV. We say thank you for watching, and keep watching till we come your way same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Culture is identity.